Sure you want to do this?
Really trying to get.
I'm not
an
sure.
answer on
It's not a
be able to
bad
get
deal.
approved or not before I put 110,000 cash down,
Yeah.
which is, yeah. So we've got a little bit of time, but we're about 6 weeks out before we can get.
And I really don't know what you have to do step by step,
Yeah.
but Mike's the big shooter on that deal.
Just a week.
That's a nice spot.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to get that.
Oh, yeah.
I'll even give you a raise next year.
Just a more.
Thanks. It's everybody's concern, but
Same raise I get.
Yep, same raise you get.
figure out how to approach all
Well,
this.
it's, to be honest with you, I might not have run again.
A road.
There was people willing to run,
My thing, or-
No,
but I hate to see it when there's nobody running. for
Exactly.
the seat.
yeah.
That name sound familiar?
Oh.
Yeah.
Hi Pam, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
I can, yes. I like your picture.
Thank you.
So Miss Race and Mr. Hall should be absent. I mean, shouldn't be, but they will be
Are
absent,
going to be absent.
correct. And Mr. Hall did indicate he would attempt to get to the meeting tonight. So I guess we'll
I
see.
told him to not stress it, but obviously if he can come, we'll include him at whatever point, but to not try to like rush or to do what he needs to do.
Sure, yeah. And then I spoke with Miss Falcon. She indicated that as far as she's aware, the meeting will still be on the 18th.
Okay. And Amy Hall is okay.
Yep, that's
This
that's
is-
what I heard.
It's an abundance of caution.
Yep.
In an appropriate abundance of caution.
So it looks like I have Molly Nixon, I have Pam Conley, I have and 3 council members in the council chamber. Mr. Hall, Miss Race, who am I missing?
I can attend the next council meeting in person if that's useful.
Yep, so I'll address that, what the law is saying right now. No, yeah, I think that's everybody accounted for then.
I got my second vaccine on Monday.
Oh, good, good, I'm happy to hear that. So, yeah, I mean, the current law is that until March 31st, you can have a no reason virtual meeting. And then past that date, you're supposed to have in-person meetings unless, of course, there is a emergency, if you are serving in the military, or if you have a quote health condition.
Mhm.
Not a whole lot of information related to what constitutes a health condition or not.
I
And
think we just would have to say that a council member has a health condition. I don't know. I don't know that they would have to specify what that is. I mean, at some point that's
Sure, and that's pretty much exactly
privacy.
what I'm alluding to is if you feel like you have a health condition, then that
Right.
probably meets it. But for the record, we might need to indicate as such, similar to how our policy says that you should comment where on earth you are located during the virtual meeting.
Sure.
But
I am at my house.
sure, yeah, and you're, well, don't have to say that. We were looking for city and state, but
I'm in Cedar Springs.
so yeah. Fortunately, it doesn't apply to staff, so I can go to Disney World and attend the meetings from Disney World if I'd like.
I could probably do the meeting in person tonight. I'm 25 days out from my first shot, but it's supposed to be 2 weeks past your second shot for full. So
What's the, I know you would know this, the efficacy of the first shot? It's something like 80%.
yeah,
right?
it climbs over time. There's actually a chart. It's not really high until you get about 36 to 48 hours out. And then it starts to climb and then it goes into like the 70s. There's actually, there's a chart. And it shifts a little depending on if you have the Moderna or the Johnson & Johnson's or if you have Pfizer. I have Pfizer. Team Pfizer, Kalamazoo, go Michigan. But you
Just figure it drop down to the bottom.
it actually continues to climb even out past the 2-week mark, out past your second shot. You
Well-
get into like the 90% at that 2-week, but it actually continues to climb out to like 100 days, which is when you get into that like 96, 97% efficacy. And Israel actually just put out a study of, because they have an enormous amount of their population that has been vaccinated, and they just released the numbers on it. And in Israel for the Pfizer vaccine, because that's the one they have, it's at 97% efficacy,
Oh.
which is,
Well-
I mean, we don't, measles vaccines don't have that.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, you know,
It's a big deal.
I'm looking forward to my staff and I being able to get the vaccine. Keep all of our city hall staff safe, obviously.
If you're over 50, I don't know if there's a way we can get that number for the vaccine clinic posted somewhere.
Yeah, we'll make a public announcement about it.
Because that would be super helpful, I think. And it's people over 50, any public school employees, not just teachers, any public school employees, any frontline workers that include grocery workers, any healthcare staff, and agricultural workers at this point.
Well, my biggest fear with the vaccine
705.
is that we'll have the Jets and the Sharks between the Moderna and the Johnson and Johnson. Maybe we'll have an epic dance battle or something.
Are you going to do some jazz hands?
Yes,
I would pay money to see that.
So 7:05, I think we have a quorum if you'd like to get going.
We can do that. So I'm going to call the meeting to order for Thursday, March 11th, 2021 at 7:06 p.m. And for everyone who is in a place where they can, will you please rise and say the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. With that, I'm going to call the roll. Lisa Atchison.
Here.
Jerry Gross.
Here.
Molly Nixon.
Here.
Rose Powell.
Here.
Renee Race. And Mayor Gerald Hall. At this time, I would take a motion to excuse Renee and to excuse Mayor Hall.
I'll make that motion. I'll support. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? They are excused. From there, we will move on to the public comment. And the council welcomes and encourages the public to speak during the public comment. And the public hearing portions of the agenda, I don't know if we have a public hearing tonight. However, council policy is to hear the public comment, not to act on the public comment at this time. Concerns brought before the council during the public comment portion of the agenda will be referred to the city manager for action. If after communicating with the city manager, no resolution is reached, the concern will be elevated to the mayor and eventually to the council for action. Any citizen wishing to speak on agenda or non-agenda items is allowed a maximum of 4 minutes each to address their concerns. This is the only time during the council meeting that citizens are allowed to address the council. If you would like a response, please state your name and address for the record. Is there any public comment at this time? We do have a public hearing. Sorry.
We do.
So-
Many agendas.
I'm sorry, I believe we have at least one person in the council room. Would they like to make a public comment?
You want to stand up to the mic and give us your name?
Yeah, so I'm Dallas Van Belkom. This is my partner, John Wheeler. And we are looking to open a micro business behind the Wesco gas station. And just came here tonight to get a little clarification on the moratorium before we make a purchase on the property. So we just don't want to be limited only to retail because it's a completely separate license than what the moratorium is for. So just kind of here for some information tonight. Nothing really to say. Thank you.
Ms. Conley, there are a number of people who have joined us virtually. Would you like me to call them each?
I would think that would be wonderful, Mr. Womack.
So I have Alex Misowitz. Alex Misowitz, would you like to make a public comment at this time? Okay, I have Linda Rensland. Linda Rensland. Would Linda like to make the public comment at this time?
I do not.
Thank you. I have Al Jano. Would Al Jano like to make a public comment?
No, thank you.
I have Carrie Dalt. Would Carrie Dalt like to make a public comment?
No, thank you.
I have Sophia Dalt. Would Sophia Dalt like to make a public comment? Okay, those are all the people that I see available online, Madam Mayor.
Todd Probst.
Sergeant Probst, would you like to
Oh,
make a public comment?
sorry. Of course it's Sergeant Probst. Why am I not knowing that? I don't have a public comment. I'm just trying to go through the names on my screen. All right, then if we have no other public comment, moving on, we have the adoption of, actually we have a public hearing and 425 request for 4191 17 Mile Road, Cedar Springs, Michigan. Conditional transfer of certain real estate property from the jurisdiction of Sullivan Township to the jurisdiction of the city.
And
Do you
just
have
before,
any-
sorry, just before we actually hold the hearing, this is related to the Sheriff's Department and Health Department building that will be placed, I believe, to the immediate west of the Taco Bell on 17 Mile Road. It's one of those peculiar things that when a county is doing a project like this, they're not actually subject to the Planning Commission review. So this is for the transfer of water and sewer to that.
Do we need a motion to open the public hearing?
You can on your own authority open it.
Okay, so then I'm going to open that public hearing. Is there anyone that would like to speak on this at this time?
So I can go through the names again, just to be sure. Linda Rensland, would Linda Rensland like to make a public comment?
No, thank you.
Would Al Jano, would you like to make a public comment?
No, thank you.
How about Carrie Dalt? Would Carrie Dalt like to make a public comment?
No, thank you.
How about Alec Misowitz? Would Alex Misowitz like to make a public comment? Yeah, I believe Sophia Dalt. Would Sophia Dalt like to make a public comment? Yeah, that's all I got. We do have two people in the council room. Would they like to make a public comment at this time?
No, not at this time.
Okay, then with that, I'm going to close the public hearing. And I believe we're going to vote on it down in the action item. Or would you like us to vote on it now, Mr. Manager?
No, if you actually do it through the action item, they'll give the council members an opportunity to discuss it if they'd like.
Okay, that's what we will do then. So we're going to close the public hearing and then we're going to move on to the adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So there are two things I would like to discuss. I don't think either one of them is super important, but I would at least provide council the opportunity. If not, I think I might put this on your agenda for next week. So the first one is the DDA mural that's being proposed by the DDA. They're requesting permission to place this on the side of the Elm Street Garage, which is the large tan building that is adjacent to the staging area. We could put it on for discussion or action if council wants, otherwise we can wait till next week. And then the second one would be a bill presented to us by Challenger on the amount of $9,549.10. This is related to low voltage wire drops that have been performed at the fire station. And it's above my spending limit, so I want to have council approval. But we could add those to the agenda today if you'd like. Otherwise, I would put it on your agenda for next week.
Do you want them as discussion items this week?
So I guess I would put DDA mural as a discussion item. Of course, you guys can always take action if you'd like. And then the Challenger bill, I would put under consent agenda. But I understand it's a large bill if you guys wanted to discuss it.
I'm comfortable with it being in the consent agenda unless someone else feels differently. So we will add that to the consent agenda. Does Ms. Johnson have that?
Just to
Yeah.
clarify, you are approving to approve the expense for the Challenger to the
Um,
consent agenda?
Yep, a motion to approve the Challenger bill in an amount not to exceed $9,549.10, please.
Thank you.
And then the DDA mural discussion would be added as a discussion item
F.
F.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes,
I would like to have that placed on the action items, please.
okay. So you would like it on,
It still gives us a chance to discuss it. But I think they have done a lot of work and it deserves to have a little faster response than that.
so you would like it on action item E,
That's correct.
D, I'm sorry, D.
Well, whatever the letter was. Yeah, D, sorry.
BD.
Do I have a motion to that effect for those two changes to the agenda?
I'll make
I would
that
make
my
a
motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, I believe. Do you have that, Ms. Johnson?
Yes, thank you.
I was trying to get something into real quick to
Okay.
to discussion. I think it might be time we start talking about what we're going to do with the soon to be former fire barn. Just get it started.
So, of course, this is council's prerogative, but that was an item I was going to place front and center on the upcoming strategic planning session that we're going to hold this summer. So maybe it's appropriate to discuss it briefly today and then discuss it more in depth at the strategic planning session.
So Ms.
Sounds good.
Powell, would you like that added as item F on the discussion items, or would you like to wait as Mr. Womack suggested?
I'd like to have just a brief discussion, so we're all kind of starting to think about what we're going to do with that building.
So it'll be item F
Yes, ma'am.
on the discussion. Did you get that, Ms. Johnson?
Yes, would Mr. Gross and Ms. Atchison like to amend their motion in second?
I would like to my motion to include that.
Yeah.
And then Ms. Nixon, would you like to second that addition?
Yes.
All right, anything else before we move forward? Then I will take a roll call vote since this includes the financial piece of the consent agenda. Ms. Atchison,
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, have we adopted the agenda at this point?
no, that's what we're doing.
Okay, I don't know if you need to do a roll call for adoption just because.
For the, okay, because we'll do the consent agenda separately.
Correct, please.
All right, so all in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Then I guess we move on to the consent agenda that includes the addition of the Challenger Bill? And this one I will do a roll call vote. But we'll start with, do I have a motion to adopt the
like- I would
consent
like-
agenda?
I would like to make a motion. Do we approve the consent agenda as amended?
Second.
Ms. Atchison,
Yes.
Mr. Gross,
Yes.
Ms. Nixon,
Yes.
Ms. Powell,
Yes.
and Mayor Pro Tem votes yes. The consent agenda passes. Moving on to action items. A motion to approve resolution 2021, a resolution approving city water and sanitary sewer service to and affecting the conditional transfer of certain real property from the jurisdiction of Solon Township to the jurisdiction of the city pursuant to the development of cooperation agreement between the city and the township dated as of December 30th, 1999 for 4191 17 Mile Road, Cedar Springs. Any discussion, Mr. Womack?
Nope, like I discussed before, this is the property immediately to the west of the Taco Bell on 17 Mile Road, and it's for the development of a very large sheriff's department. And I'm bringing it up, I'm trying to talk slowly. Sheriff's department and health department. And it would be this property right here. So I'm happy to take any questions if you have any.
Anyone have any questions before I take a motion and we vote? We can have further discussion after a motion, but if you need anything to clarify your motion. Okay, then I will entertain a motion.
I would make that motion to the effect as it is written.
As read. Is
Second
there a
it.
second?
I will second it.
Any other discussion? I will do a roll call on this since it's a relatively large transfer of property. Ms. Atchison,
Yes.
Mr. Gross,
Yes.
Ms. Nixon,
Yes.
Ms. Powell,
Yes.
and Mayor Pro Tem Conley votes yes. Moving on to action item B, a motion to approve resolution 2021-07, a resolution to approve participating in disclosure and entering into a continuing disclosure certificate for the bonds that will be issued to the Cedar Springs Drainage District, the Drainage District Project.
Yep, so this is something being requested from bond council. This is not the city's project, this is the county's project. But being as the city is largely responsible for the payback of that, they're asking if we want to participate in this, it's called continuing disclosure. Essentially, we have to notify the banks whether we are taking on any other additional debt. And by doing so, we are probably going to save the district about $100,000 over the life of the loan. It's a minor inconvenience. Unfortunately, Ms. Falcon has to bear the brunt of the most of it. And we appreciate the work that she does for that, but for $100,000, I believe it's worth it for the district.
Anyone have any questions before you make a motion?
Do we have a timeline on this project?
So the actual project, I understand, will be accomplished this summer. As far as the timeline of the bonding, I believe it's a 20-year bond.
Any other questions before a motion?
Mr. Womack, excuse me. This mask drives me right out, I'm sorry. Mr. Womack, with any of the upcoming projects that we have, is that going to have a major effect on our debt? The bridge replacement, resurfacing of the road, anything of that nature, the finishing of West Street, the extension. How is that gonna come to bear in this?
It's funny you should ask that question because I had that very same question today for bond counsel. Now, thankfully, bond counsel for the county happens to be the same exact bond counsel for the city. So they're intimately familiar with our projects that we have going on. And of course, we've been planning out our projects for 2-3 years now. So they're very familiar with our debt load. And they've indicated to us that there should be no long-term effects upon our current project statuses by working with the county on this debt.
Thank you.
Any other questions for clarification before a motion? With that, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve resolution 2021-07.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? I will again do a roll call. Ms. Atchison,
Yes.
Mr. Gross,
Yes,
Ms. Nixon,
Yes.
Ms. Powell,
Yes.
and Mayor Pro Tem Conley votes yes. This has been an enormous project for the county with the Drain Commission. Moving on to item C. A motion to modify the February 11th, 2021 marijuana moratorium to state: repeal the initial 100-foot setback moratorium and replace it with the moratorium on marijuana licenses to no more than 4 retailers in the B2, B3 district and 3 retailers in the HC, with no limitation on the industrial zone for 6 months. Are there any questions of the city manager before we entertain a motion?
So if I could just clarify why this is coming back. It was my understanding after the last meeting, we had been discussing putting a new limitation on retailers and only retailers. And we had talked about that for 5 or 10 minutes. But then when it came time to make the motion itself, I believe the motion read something to the effect of, we will place a moratorium on all marijuana licenses for those periods of time. So I simply have converted the numbers that we had used last time, which was 4 marijuana businesses and 3 marijuana businesses, and changed that to retailers, because that was my impression of what we had been discussing. So it's just my impression of what I thought council wanted to do. So I think these are appropriate numbers, and then 6 months will give us a good period of time, not only to see the planning commission complete its work, but I think it will give us a better idea and understanding of where we'll be at in 6 months. And I think 6 months will give us enough time to decide whether that should just be the complete total number that we want. And then we could change the law at that point. But this is just what I thought you guys wanted to do, and I wanted to clarify it.
Okay, any questions for the city manager?
Mike, how many licenses are in line right now to possibly move in the next 6 months? And what areas, if you have that available?
Sure. So right now we have K-Kind. They're planning on going into the preferred landscaping building. We have Michiganja. They're going into the old Cedar Cafe building. We have Loom. They're planning on going into the Vitale's building. We have a yet unnamed marijuana business that is interested in the frame shop. We have the micro business, which is intent on purchasing the land behind the Wesco. We have the White Pine Provisionary. They're interested in opening up at the strip mall where the subway is.
So that's the highway district, right?
Correct.
Okay.
We have 612 Ventures planning on opening up where the Big B Coffee strip mall is.
Have they brought us an application?
Yes. So they are currently being reviewed. We have Jade Farms. They're a grow operation. they're being reviewed.
That's in the industrial area.
Correct. And we had 2 withdraw. We had Agromed. They had planned on being at the fireworks store and they've withdrawn. And then we had 315, I think they were called. They were going to be next to the Tractor Supply Company and they have withdrawn. So I believe that's all that I'm aware of that are interested. And of course, part of my frustration is, we get these businesses who are interested in coming to town, and then they withdraw. So I'd never really know what my numbers are.
Right. Right.
And, there are some businesses who will just simply pop up and present an application at City Hall one day,
Mhm.
never having heard from them or talked to them or anything. But those are the ones that I'm aware of that are interested in the community at this moment in time.
So when they bring you the application, do they have to pay any money down before the review, or is it? What,
Yeah.
can
Yep.
anybody bring an application and not have any real skin in the game?
Kind of yes and no. So we originally started out with, you must, pay the application fee, which is 3,000 plus either the site plan or the zoning, which is either 500 or I think 25. You got to pay 200 for a special land use. So there is money that you have to pay before I'll accept the application.
Mhm.
Recently, because of the moratorium, I did do a small favor for 2 of the marijuana businesses, which is also a favor to the planning commission, that we would require and allow them to do an initial review with the planner, the city planner, before we put them on the agenda. And so that kind of reduced the planning commission's work because instead of doing 2 meetings, they only had to do 1 meeting.
Sure.
So we didn't accept their application fees at that time. We only accepted an escrow amount so that make sure the city planner got paid for his work. So I'm generally aware of what's going on, but like I said, it's been difficult because sometimes they can just pop right up with a completed application and think they're gonna be able to open up their store. Now, the most recent complication I've had is that on March 1st, the state did away with a medical pre-qualification requirement. So it opened up the ability of a lot of people to apply to get their recreational license because they did not have to have the medical pre-qualification at that time. So in the first week following the first, I received dozens of phone calls from people who thought they might be interested. But I've been trying to play it safe and tell people, hey, look, right now, here's what the moratorium says, and here's what I anticipate will happen, but I can't promise anything. So that's why I brought it back for clarification. And of course, this is council's baby. So I take no position one way or the other about it, but I do need to kind of understand what's going on and what the long-term intent of council is.
Mr. Womack, how does this affect these gentlemen that are sitting in front of us right now?
So the way the current moratorium is said is for marijuana businesses in the downtown district. Right now, we have 3 marijuana businesses in the downtown district. So if these 2 gentlemen were ready to submit today, they could, and we would accept it. And that would be the 4th and final application. However, as I indicated before, I believe there's somebody who wants to open up a marijuana business at the frame shop. So that would be the 5th. And the one at the frame shop is a retailer, not a micro business. So it's kind of a timing issue for the gentleman in the crowd, whether they'd be able to open based on when they could apply. So if you were to change the moratorium as I've written it, essentially what you'd be doing is saying, okay, frame shop person, you are more likely to get it now, whereas these micro business folks would not be affected by it, really. And I'm sure that they have better numbers than I do, but the last I heard in the entire state of Michigan, there was something like 2 or 3 micro businesses for the entire state who were actually looking to get licensed and start. So it's not a very popular business for some reason, for their reasons, but not very popular. So It's a complicated answer. Was that sufficient, Mr. Gross?
Yes, I understand. It's pretty much the way I understood it when I read what you presented to us. Does that then eliminate them if we vote on this right now, or does it open up the door for them?
So right now they could, Monday now, but on Monday, if they showed up at 7:31, they could walk in the door with an application, and if it was complete, I'd accept it, and they would be eligible for a license.
And
Really,
would-
this,
Excuse me,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
This doesn't really change that.
Okay, up there in a minute.
Yeah.
Does that eliminate the situation with the frame shop?
so this is more affecting the frame shop. So these gentlemen, I believe, are slightly more along and probably better organized than the frame shop is at this point. So I would anticipate that the micro business is more likely to show up first with application in hand.
Because is a micro business not considered a retailer?
Not the way I'm using the language.
Correct.
So-
I get it now. Yep, I got it.
Yep. So there is a retail component to a micro business, but under the law, the way it's written, retailers and micro businesses are two separate types of businesses.
Okay.
It's a separate license. I don't know if you all remember when we were discussing the different types of licenses a really long time ago, but it's a different license with the state.
Yep. So the best way to think about it is a micro business would be similar to a microbrewery. You're expected to be able to brew and sell that product on your own location. Whereas retailers are more like, I guess, a party store. They can sell Bud Light and Budweiser and Miller Lite and whatever else.
I
That's
have
a-
some food for thought, believe it or not. I, having the 4 retailers in 2 different zones is stretching it, in my opinion. And I'd like to see each zone have an equal amount of marijuana businesses, 3 in B2, 3 in B3, and 3 in the highway.
That
And
would be that would be
eventually,
a different motion.
right. But this is just something it's been in my mind. I really didn't, when we did it the first time, I thought that the B2 and the B3 districts were separate, but they've been combined. So that was my misunderstanding. So.
Okay, but the motion that's on the table right now
Right,
is about amending the language on the moratorium from the last meeting.
right.
It's not about a different motion or about adding businesses. And at this point, we're not changing the agenda.
Right. It's just food for thought. I don't know if these fellas have something to say or if they can, or,
They spoke in the public section.
Okay,
Right now,
all
we
right.
need to make a decision
yes,
about if we are modifying this motion, really clarifying this motion
right,
on this moratorium. So
right.
if you have other questions about that,
Mhm.
you should ask them of Mr. Womack. Otherwise, we need to decide if we're going to vote on this. Are there other questions for Mr. Womack?
Ms. Conley, just a point of order. A council member could ask the chairperson to allow members of the public to speak on an issue
Yes, I'm not doing it.
if the chairperson would like to. Thank
Yes,
you.
because if
I'd
we're
like to
talking
make the
about that, we're
motion.
also then talking about changing the agenda. And right now, this is about the council clarifying the language
Okay,
on
I
a
think we're
motion
ready
that
to
they
make a
made
motion.
last month.
I'd like to
Okay.
make the motion to modify the February 11th, 2021 marijuana moratorium to state, repeal the initial 100-foot setback moratorium and replace it with a moratorium on marijuana licenses to no more than 4 retailers in the B2, B3 district and 3 retailers in the HC with no limitation in the industrial zone for 6 months.
I would second that.
All right. I am going to take a roll call because again, this was about language that was confusing.
Are we going to have a discussion?
We can have, yes. Is there any discussion?
Like I said, I think each zone should have the same amount, fair amount, industrial, B2, B3, and highway, say at 3. That's just my opinion. And that's all I have to say about it.
Okay. Any other
Okay.
discussion?
I guess, I guess it still comes down, in my mind, as to these gentlemen are the same, but they're different. So if we're plugging them into the retailers and we're saying that there's somewhat one being held for one in the frame shop, that eliminates them. That's where I'm a little mixed in my mind, if that's what it is doing.
No,
It's not what it's doing.
Okay, that's fine.
And Ms. Conley, could I just
Clarify.
clarify one thing?
Sure.
We are absolutely 100% not holding a license for anybody, specifically not holding a license for anybody who might be trying to go into the frame shop. This is simply an acknowledgement that there is at least one person who's interested, who might be, but of course, like I said, there's also the possibility somebody could walk in tomorrow, Monday, and have a license ready to go, and that's the one I'll accept.
And also to clarify, a retail license is not the same as a micro license,
Correct.
a micro business license. It's a separate license with the state.
So but it's still a marijuana license, right? Okay.
There isn't a marijuana license with the state. There's multiple types of marijuana licenses.
Right.
That's like saying there's an alcohol license. There's not an alcohol license. There's a beer and wine license. There's a serving by the glass license. It's a different license. Like I feel like Mr. Womack's example of the difference between a microbrew and a party store is a really good analogy.
Ms. Conley, it might actually be something just a little bit simpler than that, and I apologize for this. In my motion, I say a moratorium on marijuana licenses, and that is simply shorthand, as Madam Mayor Pro Tem you correctly indicated. It isn't a marijuana license. It is a marijuana license for a retailer.
Retail,
It is a
very
marijuana
specifically
license
retail.
for a micro business. It's just shorthand, and I apologize for that. So that might be the confusion.
Does that clarify for you, Ms. Powell?
So the micro business, as I understood it, as we discussed it before, was a business. They grow your own product and you sell it. So the retail is part of it. It's not the whole thing. Is that correct?
So it's a micro business differences. A retailer can only buy product from a grower license holder.
Mm-hmm.
And a micro business is completely vertically integrated. They can only sell their own product that they grow in-house.
Right.
Whereas a retailer can't grow their own product.
Okay, so you're not considered a retailer, but you're still a marijuana
There will be a
business.
retail component, but it is not
It's like the brewery
licensed.
that makes its own beer
Right?
to
And it sells
sell,
beer.
but it's a different license with the state than if it were selling Bud Light by the can.
We wouldn't be able, if we ran out of product, we wouldn't be able to buy more from some grower.
Right.
So it's all,
Right.
everything's.
Ms. Powell,
Yeah.
I hate to jump in, but we can't hear what he's saying. This is one of the
Oh,
reasons
okay.
why the chairperson normally gets to call on members of the public. So if the chairperson would like to hear from him, she can invite him to the microphone for additional comments.
Rose, did you?
This is about if we want to change the language on the motion from last month. If you want to have a additional piece brought to the next council meeting to change that moratorium, to add numbers of businesses, to restrict numbers of businesses, to whatever, we can have that at the next meeting. But this is about whether or not you want to modify the language on the moratorium from last month.
No,
And if you're not clear about what is the different licenses are, we can go over that.
I was just wondering if a micro business is considered retailer, and apparently not.
No,
Okay, got
not
it.
by the state.
All right, all done.
Okay, then let me ask one quick question, which got raised now
Sure.
that we're talking about this. Mike, what did you say about the licenses with the part that you wrote? What did you say?
Yeah, sorry. So I thought maybe it was just simply a miscommunication on my behalf, because the way I wrote it is maybe simply how I understand it. When I use the term replace it with a moratorium on marijuana licenses, that's simply a shorthand way of me saying a marijuana license for a retailer.
Okay,
Because as I was discussing before, there are, I think, 8 different types of licenses.
Right.
And I apologize, I didn't use the complete sentence because I thought it was easy to understand, but maybe I was wrong.
I just wanted
So
to
what
make
I'm-
sure I understood, and I do.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Is there other questions? Because that is confusing. There are, as Mr. Womack just said, there are multiple different types of licenses, which is part of why we had this confusion with the motion in the first place from last month, which is why we're trying to clarify it. So we need to make sure that we get it correct this time. Now, if we want to change it, that's a different story. And I'm willing to entertain that at the next meeting. But for this one, it needs to be about clarifying the intent of the motion. Any other discussion? The motion has been made and seconded. So I'm going to do a roll call vote. Ms. Atchison,
Yes.
Mr. Gross,
No,
Ms. Nixon,
Yes.
Ms. Powell,
No,
and then Mayor Pro Tem votes yes. So the motion carries. I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes.
Thank you. And I apologize, I didn't have this clearer. But of course, I'm happy to talk with any council member or really any member of the public who wants clarification on this, at least how I understand it.
And I would like to also say that this is a moratorium with these numbers for 6 months. So we can revisit this again at the end of 6 months. The idea was to allow the planning commission on some level to get caught up because they're kind of drowning. All right, moving on to, we added as a action item the DDA mural discussion. So that would be item D. The DDA mural, Mr. Womack. So this would be item D. I don't have a motion language. Mr. Gross, you're the one that wanted this moved as a motion. Do you have language for a motion?
yes, I'd like to make a motion that the DDA mural as proposed for the side of the building, the storage building.
Elm Street Garage.
Thank you, because I couldn't remember the address. Elm Street Garage be approved.
Second.
And I presented a picture of what was proposed by the DDA. And
I
just so
think Miss
we're-
Atchison, did you second?
I did.
Okay. Any discussion?
I think it's truly a beautiful symbol of our city. And we don't know how much it's going to cost yet. I'm on the DDA board, by the way. I did ask that they put Michigan on there somewhere because of the fact that we have people coming from other states. There's many other Cedar Springs. We have people, international people coming through on our trails, and especially coming for Red Flannel Day. And I would hope that the council would encourage the DDA to include Michigan on that Cedar Springs sign. And, otherwise, I would surely support it. It's gorgeous.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
The only other comment I have is I would like to see a sign like that, similar to all of the entrances into Cedar Springs. To me, it's impressive.
Are you modifying your motion?
No, because the motion is what they are proposing to do, not what I would like to see. So the motion is to approve their proposed sign.
And use
Okay.
the building and use it, put it on
Use
that
of the
building.
Building on Elm Street, yes.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed say no. The motion carries. So moving on to discussion items. Item A, fire code update draft ordinance.
Yep, so I drafted an ordinance. The current fire code here in the city is the 2006 edition. Plainfield Township uses the 2018 edition, which is the most recent. And so we'll be working with them hopefully for the distant future. And I'd like to update so that we're on the same code that they are. We've got copies of the code down here at City Hall for anybody who would like to go through it. It's a bit of a read. So this ordinance, which is the first read, will be brought back to you next month if you have no objections for passage.
Any questions, any discussion?
Yeah, I have one question, Mr. Womack. Is it necessary for us to approve it each time when it is an upgrade? Or could that not be created in a situation that anytime there is an upgrade, it is an automatic adoption of it by the council?
I'd have to look into that question, but we're currently using the 2006 edition. Here we are, 15 years later now, simply upgrading. Part of the issue with doing that is, so for example, I know that the IMS group who does our building inspections for us, I think they use a 2012 edition because sometimes the code companies will change a comma and a period and then expect everybody to update and pay them money. I don't want to get into the college textbook method of updating editions. So, sometimes it just takes somebody who has the skills to write these ordinances without paying a city attorney to get this stuff done. So I don't think that's necessary. I could look into it further if you'd like to, but I just don't think it's necessary.
And they don't update it that often, but there are periodically changes in it that may not be drastic. And that was kind of what I was asking you about, if every time they had to make a change in it, if we had to adopt it. If this satisfies the need, then I'm satisfied with it. So.
Any other discussion? Okay, moving on. The item B, Cedar Springs Social District Draft. We've talked about this quite a bit.
So I will admit that to a certain extent, this was copying the homework of the kid next to me. Thank you, Rockford. Thank you, Cadillac. So this plan is really being written for the Michigan Liquor Control Commission. They're the ones who will be receiving it and saying, oh, Cedar wants to do that. So I did have a few questions from council members regarding this draft. One in particular was the discussion last time about separating people who drinking alcohol from people not drinking alcohol at the amphitheater. So I didn't feel it was necessary to put that into this draft, but it's still my full intention to accomplish that by signage and maybe some kind of barriers, traffic cones or something. So it's our intention to do that. It just didn't make it into the draft. So I guess I'm looking for any feedback that council members might have and whether we should finalize it and anything you guys want to see changed.
Would you like a straw poll? Would you like?
Well, during the last meeting, thankfully, you guys gave me the go-ahead to at least put the draft together, which was, I guess I'll take as my straw poll. At this stage, I guess I would look for just comments about anything that needs to be added or things that need to be changed. And then hopefully by next month, we can bring it back for approval.
Okay, I will ask each council member. Ms. Nixon
Yes, I'm comfortable with that draft.
and Ms. Atchison,
Yes. I'm comfortable.
Miss- Mr. Gross,
I think if I was going to ask anything at all, that it'd be brought back for review 1 year. After the first year, we see how it works. But I can live with it the way it is, but I'd like to see it reviewed.
There is a provision within it that if the council wants to curtail it, that we could hold a hearing. So the reason that that's a requirement, this is a Liquor Control Commission requirement, is because they don't want to put the effort into allowing these businesses to serve alcohol off-site for a council to willy-nilly just yank it back away from them. So there is a requirement in it that the council would have to hold a public hearing and take comments if they were to close it down. But if you simply mean a 1-year review, we can certainly do that. That's not an issue.
That is what I'm looking for. It's not necessarily to repeal it, but to take a look at if we had to amend it in any manner. If we find something that is become a weakness in it, that we could adjust that.
okay?
But that's my thought. It depends on the rest of the board.
My only thought is, are we going to have sheriff on duty, and who's going to pay for that?
Yep. So the intention, of course, is to have at least one additional sheriff's deputy on site, at least for the first couple of concerts. So for anybody who has not read this, this is to coincide with the concerts in the park that the city's planning. So we're planning on having at least one additional sheriff's deputy, and the hope is that we'll have at least one of our cars not be busy during this time, and we'll have them posted in the at the amphitheater as well. But I'd like to think that within the first 2 or 3 concerts, we'll know if people are behaving themselves or not. And so maybe we could reduce or eliminate that requirement. You know, there are a lot of other cities that are doing this. They don't seem to have problems. So I'd like to think that the first couple will have it situated, and we've already arranged for funding for that purpose. So I don't see that as a problem, but you're right. I'd like people to be able to go out and enjoy an adult beverage, not get too rowdy, and then hopefully not have any problems.
Okay, any other questions, Ms. Powell?
Not at this time.
Then I think that is everyone that's here. I'm fine with it. I think it looks really good. So moving on then to item C, the Cedar Springs Public Library curtilage.
Curtilage is one of those words I just love using. I had a prosecutor once who liked to use the term jostle. Anyways, so curtilage is the area that immediately surrounds the library building. The city owns the building, and the city owns the park that surrounds it. Now, the agreement that we have with the public library is that they can use the building for library purposes. But as Ms. Clark, I'm sure would tell you if she was here, we've run into a few situations where they've wanted to hold events outside, and then of course they have to arrange things with the city and whatever else. It can cause certain problems, and I don't have any issues with them using the curtilage around the library for their purposes. The only difficulty we're going to have is when they try to use the amphitheater. And so the intent right now is that the amphitheater would remain under city control, and they'd have to ask permission. But as I indicated in your packet, there is an area around the library building that I think would be safe for them to use at their own whim without needing city permission. So with council approval, I will, I guess, come up with some kind of an agreement that the library board and the city can sign, and then the library will be able to use that land for their purposes.
And the idea would be things like story time, and it's a lovely day, so we're gonna go outside to have story time, or the book club is going to meet and it's a very nice day and we've decided to meet outside, or when they're having summer reading programming events that they might decide to move them outside, and that they would be able to do that at their discretion without having to schedule it with the city.
Correct. And I did see the draft copy of all the library programming that's coming up, and it looks like it's going to be an exciting year.
Yes.
I'm gonna put him back. He would love that apple core.
Do we have any questions about this as part of the discussion? Moving on to item D, the Cedar Blitz Gravel Bicycle Race, May 22nd, 2021, from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. I think we talked about this a year ago.
Yep. So they had planned on doing this last year. Something happened in the meanwhile, didn't make it feasible. So we're back into the planning session for this year. I understand they are a go. They want to be there. They've been putting a lot of work into it. Now, I don't know if they were entirely ready. I think they were planning on submitting for next month. But I did ask them as a favor to me to submit it early so council could kind of see what's going on. So we've already had a couple discussions with them after they submitted this, and we've already polished it a little bit. I think it's great in theory. There's a couple little things that need to be changed. I do have to put them with Sergeant Probst to make sure that the Kent County Sheriff's Department's on the same page. And I know that the Cedar Springs Brewing Company is going to also do some concurrent event at the same time. So their initial estimates are between 200 and 300 bicyclists that plan on being here for that event, and that would be awesome. That's a good infusion of money and people into the community. And I did a 10-mile bike ride the other day, so I'm sure I'm ready for front of the pack at that race.
All right. Any questions? Any discussion? Moving on to item E, the Cedar Springs electronic meeting policy. The no reason exemption ends March 31st. So we need to have a discussion about what health reasons might look like.
Yep. So theoretically, the no reason exemption ends on March 31st. However, they are working on a possible extension into June, which I've already written to Mark Heisinger about. I think June is appropriate because by that time, every person who would like a vaccine should be eligible. I don't have my vaccine and I'm sitting in my office, so I don't expose myself when I don't have a mask on. So if March 31st is to come, the expectation is that all board members for all boards will attend meetings in city council chambers in person. However, under the law, there is an exemption for any, I forget the exact language, but health reasons.
Yes.
And frankly, I'm not going to ask you if you've got a headache and that's sufficient cause to be a health reason. So I want to make sure everybody's kind of aware that's a possibility and leave it there for what it's worth.
I would also like to clarify that any health reason could be that you are concerned about becoming infected and you are not yet vaccinated. I would not want to put any of our staff at risk who have not had an opportunity yet to get vaccinated by that date. And if your health reason is, I don't feel it's safe for me yet, then that should be, we're not going to have you don't have to have an imminent health issue personally. That would be my take on it. Does anyone else have any other discussion on it? Because I want to make sure everyone feels safe. And I'm a doubly vaccinated person who intends to be there. But I care about everyone being safe.
I would
All
agree
right.
that concern about not being vaccinated is a sufficient health reason.
Yes. So, and you don't even have to tell us that. You can just say it's not safe for me or it's within my health issue. You don't have to give us a specific. So that's and we can obviously update that later as we get out into June or July, but for the next couple of months, that should certainly be a sufficient reason. Any other discussion?
Can we, without state permission, extend it to the end of June, or we're not allowed to?
So it's state law, so unfortunately we
Hmm.
can't amend state law, but the
Right.
current state law does say that a health concern is sufficient reason.
Right.
Okay,
And we get to define what a health concern looks like, which is what that's our discussion right now. And if a health concern is I'm not vaccinated, that's a sufficient health concern. You don't have to say like I've been in contact with a sick person or I'm sick or I have a health concern. And that can be our policy on that. So we will look at that. And I think that Mr. Womack is correct in that may be extended anyway, because we don't have everyone vaccinated yet. I know
Contact
there's
your
several
state law.
members of council who haven't had that opportunity yet. So any other discussion on it? Moving on to communications. Cedar Springs Fire Station
Madam Mayor,
progress report.
yeah.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, we did
Yes.
add a.
Oh, I'm sorry, item F that we added. You are right.
So I will
Item-
just, if I could, just for 2 seconds.
Please.
So this, unfortunately, for council members, is going to be a year of lots of discussion and planning. I plan to this summer host a strategic planning session with council and staff, which will give us a good direction to start walking in for
Not unfortunate. It's fortunate that we are in a place where we get to have these kind of conversations.
Of course, that's my dry sense of humor. And then we'll eventually be discussing also the heart of Cedar Springs, a potential splash pad, a update to the recreation plan, and then hopefully next year, a full master plan update. Of course, there's a strong connection between the strategic planning session and then the master plan. As Ms. Powell has correctly identified, one of the issues will be the old fire station barn and what will eventually happen either with the building and or the land that sits underneath it. So there are a number of competing concerns and issues. I know everyone's going to have their own thoughts about it, but eventually it's probably going to have to come down to a vote of the council of what we want to do. But Rose, I guess I'll leave it to you. What are your thoughts?
I just want to get it out there and get us to start thinking about it. It's because our new fire barn will be open in 2 months? And June 1st or something like that. So we got to start thinking about what we're going to do with it. It's kind of an eyesore.
I
That's
have a
all.
question that will make a difference for me when we look at can that building be moved?
There are some people of the opinion that yes, it can be moved.
That's what I've been told. And that's why I was curious.
So I guess my thought is, I don't know if the city trusts that it can be moved and reused. Of course, you can
Okay.
move anything. Being reused is a different story. I do know that there's at least one person who would be interested in removing it and using it for their own personal use. And they would do that in exchange for not charging the city for the removal, which is something we'd have to pay for otherwise, right? But we had talked briefly about potentially using that as a DPW garage, maybe move it down to the wastewater treatment plant.
Right.
But I just don't know if it would be safe to do so. So that's something we could explore, of course.
I mean, I would be interested. We could use more DPW storage, but I don't know if moving that is the best solution for that or not.
We'll find out.
Just as a side note, I had one of our shorter constituents who isn't able to vote yet suggest to me that perhaps it would be a community building. I'm not sure the feasibility of that or how that affects parking at the library, because I know that was our initial intent, but just throwing it out there, it was a suggestion made.
The community building development team has plans for a community building that would be in Morley Park.
I think that's an excellent idea, but I just don't know if the building codes would permit it. But I believe there are a number of other awesome ideas that we can discuss. But I really do appreciate it when citizens come up with good ideas like that.
Mhm. But you should let that shorter constituent know that there is a community building in the works. There's even a picture, there's a drawing of it. And the tentative plan, the community building development team, they presented it at a dinner, I guess. I don't know what you would call it. A meeting a year and a half ago. Were you there, Mr. Womack? I feel like you were there.
I was. I'm not entirely sure we have a funding and installation goal at this point. The problem with the Morley Park site is that the former gas station, which the city rents for parking out there, there's actually a significant portion of that property that is owned by the gas station property. So we would need to either purchase it or get some kind of agreement to use that property. And I'm not sure that they're willing to do that.
Okay.
But of course, there's a reason that the new fire station is going to have a community room there.
Right.
It's not a community center, but it's a nice public room that people can use. Yeah, but we're moving along. We're getting lots of stuff accomplished.
Yeah, the community building development team is hoping to, they were originally planning to put a community building in that area near the amphitheater, but the growth of the school and the size of the graduating classes, they realized that, for example, the community building couldn't be used for a class reunion at the 300 size that they were initially talking about. It would be a 300 person facility, and that they needed to go up to more like a 400 or 500 person facility. And at that point, it doesn't fit. And if it's smaller than that, then, the class of 2016, it's too small for them to hold their 10-year class reunion. So not that they will necessarily have it built by 2026, but that was part of the conversation, as they were looking at the graduating classes that were growing. Not that they're the only people that would use it, but it's kind of an indicator of the size of groups you might have. If it's not big enough to hold the class reunions for your high school that's up the road, then it's probably not big enough for your community. At which point then they needed to find another place. And tentatively they're looking at Morley Park, but I know that there's some other options as well on property. The goal is to make it to fit in with our heritage, to make it look something like the old train station. They have a long way to go as far as funding, but they do have a initial sketch, and they, I believe, have a fund that can be donated to help move it forward. And it is on the plan of the community building development team. And as we see from the library and the amphitheater, they build buildings. So you should tell our shorter constituent that it's an amazing idea and that there are other people who would like to make it happen also. Anything else on that, Mr. Womack?
Nope, just looking forward to talking about that and many, many other things this year of planning.
We have so many wonderful things in our community and so many things moving forward. This splash pad was something that a lot of people have mentioned that they want. It's somewhat complicated and somewhat expensive to try to make happen, but we're going to explore the idea. It's, as you know, something that can be very well supported for people with disabilities, which has been moving our sidewalks forward and changing the entrance on our city hall has all been a piece of that. I frequently get asked about our swings in Morley Park that are supported for people with disabilities. So that's when we start talking about that, that's a big component that I think is really quite wonderful. And we see that in our master plan where we talk about types of housing that have no step, and the types of curb cuts that we've been putting in to support people, our walkability and our movement for people with disabilities. So I'm really, and that's a very near and dear to my heart, as lots of people know. So
Madam
I'm very
Mayor
excited to
Pro
have that conversation.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes.
may I suggest that we move on because a lot of things that are being discussed right now are things that we discussed at that event that the city manager is proposing. And we can get
I'm
into depth.
happy to do that. Ms. Powell is the one that asked to have this put on the agenda.
I'm just asking if we could move on, please.
Has everyone else felt that they've gotten to discuss this? Then moving on to communications.
So I'll just point out that under council's previous policies, I do have the authority to approve of community events if they are events that have been held previously without issue. We've got the Life Walk event that is June 19th. I believe they host it in Morley Park. They walk around the community. Never had an issue with those folks. They're pretty good. And then we've got a couple of worship services that are planned throughout the summer. And I believe those will be occurring at the amphitheater. So this is a time of year where we got lots of community events coming in. So bicycle race, and the city is currently working with a group to bring 8 to 10 music concerts in the park. So once we have that planned out, I will personally submit a community event to the city council.
And just to clarify on the scheduling of the amphitheater, that is done with the city?
Correct. So so just to clarify, there were a group of Girl Scouts that were using the amphitheater, I think on Thursday nights or something, for an hour last year because they didn't want to meet indoors for COVID. And that's perfectly fine. We have no issues with people using it for that purpose. But if you want to reserve it, if you want to be able to use electricity, that kind of thing, then yes, you would come to City Hall. We do have a form that you have to fill out. And then we'd be happy to allow you to use it after we do all the things required through City Hall. Yes.
Wonderful. Any other questions on that, on any of the communications? Moving on to department reports. Mr. Manager.
Thank you. So as we're discussing the amphitheater, it just reminded me we do have 2 Wi-Fi hotspots here in the city. One's at the amphitheater, one is in Morley Park. Hopefully people are getting to use that. You know, the weather warmed up quite a bit this week, and I saw lots of people out walking around and really enjoying the outdoors. I'm always happy to see that. Staff has been working pretty hard on the budget recently. It's shaping up. I think it's in pretty good shape. Hopefully we don't scare council away with the red that's on it, but this is gonna be one of those years where we accomplish a lot, but we're gonna do it by drawing down on some of the fund balances. So it's a totally planned thing, so please don't be shocked next week at your meeting. Your budget meeting will be the 18th at, I believe, 6 p.m. Similar to this meeting, I believe it will be hybrid in fashion. Of course, it always helps to come to City Hall if you're able. And man, geez, all sorts of stuff going on in this community. It's been real busy, keeping me very busy in my office. We've been doing lots of economic development work. And of course, when you have economic development, you have money to do other things like splash pads. So looking forward to a fun and productive summer.
And people can pick up their budget at City Hall on Monday?
Yep, so we're just tying up a few loose strings. We should have things finalized by probably mid-morning on Monday.
Tuesday for sure.
So, yeah, I was gonna say, we'll probably email it out Monday. I'm more than happy to drop it off for any council person, their house or their mailbox, if you guys would like that, but otherwise Tuesday we'll have copies at City Hall.
So Tuesday, paper copies at City Hall. There will be an email copy landing in your box sometime Monday.
And this will be treated just like any other public meeting. All this information is posted to the city's website.
Right. I just want to make sure that our council knows when they can start looking for, and because it's big, a lot of people like to get a paper copy. And so when they can pick it up to be ready for a read through on Thursday.
Correct.
Any questions on that? Then moving on to the Department of Public Works. Does Mr. LaRose have anything? Is he here with us tonight?
Yeah, I'm here. I have nothing. I apologize for my late arrival. I started to log in.
Hey, Bill, you gotta come up to a mic.
I'm here. I apologize for my late arrival. I started to log in, then had to go deal with a sewer problem. So if
You're
anybody has any
fine.
questions, yeah, part of the job.
Thank you for all that you do to make sure that happens. I'm pretty sure the sewer problem was more important than talking to us.
Yep, thank you.
Because, you know, sometimes sewer happens. Moving on to the police department. Sergeant Probst, anything for us this?
I just wanted to say we had a little scare this morning at the high school.
Yeah, I got that notice.
Yeah, and within minutes, we had about 6 police officers on site. I just want to say that the school staff, the administration, the teachers, the bus drivers, everybody involved did a tremendous job today, this morning, and making sure the kids were safe and getting them home to their families. Yeah, I thought everything went well. Thankfully, it was just a threat. No substance behind it at this point. And we still have follow-up investigation to do so we can figure out where that threat came from. But everything went well.
Okay, so there was, I've had several people ask me and I'm like, well, I live pretty close and nothing went boom. So I guess it was okay.
Yeah, it went well. It was an email threat that came into the principal at the high school early this morning, right before school started. Thankfully, that school had not started yet, and majority of the kids were not even off their buses yet, so they were all rerouted away. And yeah, it was.
My middle schooler got and my middle schooler is virtual, but he got the notice, I don't know, after his second Zoom this morning.
Yeah, I think the other schools were kind of just an extra precaution. There was no indication that it was any other school than the high school, but it was just
Okay.
just as a precaution, they were dismissed as well.
I'm glad that that's all it was. So wonderful. Thank you. And thank you for responding so quickly and effectively. And I'm glad that it wasn't something really awful. Anything else for us?
That's all I have. If somebody has any questions.
Anybody have any questions for Sergeant Probst? Moving on to the fire department. Chief Frazier, how goes our new fire station? I walked my dog by it.
Well, you're the reason there was a fire on the sidewalk.
All right,
I have nothing to add.
it's looking wonderful.
Marty, is there
Okay.
any chance we'll have that fire truck? Have you talked to the folks that are working on it?
Mrs. Paul, we've had promises for 7 years now. And
Right.
I would keep my fingers and toes crossed. It may, I'm not gonna promise or go out and throw anybody under the bus, but it may be available by midsummer.
Oh, I hope so. We miss it terribly.
Well, it makes me feel a little bit bad because I was one of the group that decided that we would approach the council 7 years ago and ask
Mm,
permission to have that refurbished. And having no idea it would be this long, but
It's gonna be gorgeous when it's done though.
it will be. It'll be something we can all be very, very, very proud of.
Yes, sir.
Anything else, Chief Frazier?
Like I said, I have nothing. You
Okay,
got my
we are
message.
tentatively planning to hopefully have a ribbon cutting sometime in May.
I think we're going to preliminary date now is maybe in June with the festivities going on at the Heart of Cedar with the library start a reading program, maybe a concert. I would like it on a weekend so that parents that work during the day have a chance to come and tour the building as opposed to a weekday.
Absolutely.
That date is still tentative, but we're working. I believe the last I knew sometime in the early part of June.
Okay. Excellent. Any other questions for Chief Frazier? Moving on to the city clerk.
I just
Ms.
wanted to take
Johnson.
a moment to remind everybody that nomination petitions for the 2 openings for city council. There are 2 expiring seats for the November election. Nominating petitions can be picked up in my office. They do need to be picked up in person. So please do call before you stop in. Those are due April 20th at 4 p.m., no later. If anyone has any questions, they can reach me directly here at City Hall.
Wonderful. And any questions on that? Or anything else for Ms. Johnson? The finance director, who we're going to get to talk to lots on Thursday.
I have nothing to add if anybody has any questions.
I don't have anything. Does anyone else have any questions for Ms. Falcon? Moving on to code enforcement and building inspections. Do we have anything there? Mr. Manager? I'm gonna go with no.
Sorry, no,
As
there's
nice as
nothing.
the certificates are on the wall.
Correct.
Anything on, Mr. Manager, anything on the code enforcement or building inspections?
Yeah, I've wondered if maybe we need to consider removing that from the agenda. It's a good placeholder for me to put anything in there, but over the years, it just doesn't seem to be something council is very interested in. It's something we deal with internally, so I'd be open to considering removing that from the agenda at some point.
I would be fine with moving it. If you want to add that as a removal, I don't know if we need to add it to the consent agenda or if that's just something that you would do, but I would certainly be fine with that. You can, I don't know, does anybody else on council have any thoughts on that?
I would like to see it publicly available somewhere. It doesn't necessarily have to be on our agenda, but just a monthly synopsis somewhere.
There is a monthly synopsis in your agenda from code enforcement. We don't normally publish building inspection reports, but those are available at City Hall.
Anybody else have thoughts on it? Okay. Then any other questions on boards or commission minutes that have been presented? They're in your packet. If nothing, then I'm going to move on to council comments. Nothing, I will move on to council comments. And Mr. Gross.
I would like to thank the DPW again for the work that they did, especially during the heavy snows we had. I'm sure they put in a lot of long hours. I would also like to commend Sergeant Probst and the rest of the sheriff's department for the actions they have taken. I understand that there was a supposed break-in, and the deputies were right there right away and found out who they were and discussed it. I don't know what the results are as of yet, but I'm sure he does, and that's fine as long as they found the culprits, and whatever reason they had was theirs. But I am proud of the people that serve the city of Cedar Springs, including the fire department. They do a very good job, and sometimes I don't think they get the recognition that they should have. Thank you very much.
Okay. Miss Atchison.
Just kind of go off of what he said. The staff, I'm thankful for the staff that help move things along fast. I'm excited about new businesses moving into town. Whatever we can do to try and make it happen without loading our planning commission too heavy. Also, when we do have questions, I think we need to have a little more patience and really listen to the question the council person is actually making, and not go off on a tangent about something else that's not related to the question. So sometimes we just need clarification is all. And that'll be it.
Ms. Powell.
Just wanted to let y'all know I had the great honor of being one of the first patients at our new dental office, and it is absolutely awesome. And Dr. Z is a wonderful dentist. If anybody ever needs a great dentist, and a great team there. Versity blood draw is Tuesday from 12:30 to 7:30. If you want to give your blood, we've been having a wonderful turnout there, and I'm very proud of Cedar Springs for showing up. The CBDT, their first meeting is in April. I couldn't tell you exactly the date, but a lot of things going on there. Excited to see all these people back and going back to work. The Lions Club popcorn sale, that's a fundraiser for the Women's Club Scholarship, is Saturday. If you want some of that awesome kettle corn, they'll have it there for sale, and they're making a lot of good money for that. It's just a great fundraiser. And I was thrilled tonight to see the lights on at the theater. So that was really wonderful. So, and thank you everybody for all your hard work and helping us get through all these issues.
Claire, can you clarify for us where the blood donation is if people want to go donate blood?
The United Methodist Church, the two and a half or a block and a half to the south, right here on Main Street.
Just you said I think you said the time and the date, but I wasn't sure that you said the location. So
Yep, Tuesday. Yep.
People knew. Yep. So Tuesday from 6 to
12:30 noon to 7:30 at night, or 6:30 at night. Sorry.
Okay. So from 12:30 in the afternoon until 6:30 in the evening at the Methodist Church.
Yes, ma'am.
And there's a desperate need for blood. So if that's a thing that you are capable of doing, that would be wonderful. Thank you. Anything else, Ms. Powell?
Just thanks to everybody and all their hard work, and thank God it's spring and it's 2021.
Amen. Ms. Nixon.
Just thank you to the staff for your ongoing good work, and we'll see you next week.
And we don't have Ms. Race or Mr. Hall, so that leaves me. And I am glad that we could all come together with at Mr. Hall having to be gone at the last minute and make this work so well. And I appreciate all of the wonderful things that are happening. We have so many exciting things happening, and all of the work that our clerk and our fire chief and our treasurer and DPW, all of these folks put in to make all of this happen. Things like social districts and new fire stations and city plans that include splash pads and moving old fire stations. And those conversations couldn't happen without all of this behind the scenes work that these folks do. And I'm really grateful for that. And I'm so glad that I live in a place where all of these wonderful things happen because all these wonderful people are doing all of these wonderful things. And with that, we are adjourned.
Yay.
8:34, not too bad.
Good job, Pam.